Yeah, so Johnny's one recessive, right? I think Johnny's recessive.
Yeah.
I don't want you.
That's your tripod?
I give it up for you.
Dad, is that your tripod? I'll walk it.
Hi, Daddy. Thank you. How about you?
Thanks for sending me Tommy's
Oh, you got it.
resorts
Yes.
brochure.
Great.
Johnny, put your pants over that. It's big. They're big. Stand up. One day.
It's the States. He's still in the States, but he looks so...
No, Johnny, don't. It's not that. Don't touch this thing. Get off.
Yes, it is.
Hi guys. You're carrying a good name.
Hi. Hi. How you doing? Looking like you. I forgot to see her.
Are you sitting there for me, Connie?
You sit right here.
Is there room for me?
Oh, no, you sit on here. You can sit in the person's chair.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, it's my chair.
Hey, where are we sitting? Yeah, there's no
Dad.
Just got there.
Yeah.
Are you the photographer?
Hello.
That's right.
Dad, it's at you.
You need a flower.
Don't run. I'm moving it.
Where's the front desk? All the way.
Johnny, look out, John. Tired. No, just watch that. Should I move it over there? Stop. Johnny, look out. Get over there, now. Because I said so. Johnny. Did you get it? Whoa. Don't, Johnny, it isn't funny.
We're so glad to have you.
I'm Connie Briggs.
Mr. Roach Walton. I work here.
Nice meeting you.
Good.
Yeah, I am Helen. Hi, I'm Denise Roach Walton. I'm one of the staff here. And you're related?
I'm Holly Jepson.
daughter here. Well, this is really an honor for us.
Yes, well, it is our situation.
I bet you can't wait to see that.
Well, I've found them and I think they're treasures. I know they're treasures. Hi, Bess. Hi, Bess. How are you? I'm fine. Good. That's right. Okay. Are you going to play
No, you can't get first. You can't get first if someone. Go, George. You can dive in. The cake.
Yeah.
When are we gonna do that?
One thing you never do is over zoom, 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 zoom.
Do it on my couch.
Try to really
No, somebody's. Turn it on. Okay.
You got
Is that a Doug's or is that yours?
That's Bill's.
Bill's, I mean,
Yeah.
Scott's.
And I've never done one looking at the screen.
But you like to take photographs, don't you?
I just started thinking about doing this in the quartering well. It's going to be very inside that. It's too bad. I'll get things together. Just sing something and everything Hi, sorry.
You're wondering how I know because Connie told me. I'm not that clairvoyant, but anyway, that's before the garden. Oh, if I was born then, I was born there. No, I wasn't born there. Well, is that when I was a child, I think I remember Dad going fishing all the time with Barney and Bill and Bob and two.
Is it recording? Is it recording? Okay, well.
Do that again.
Did you have trouble finding it?
Yes.
I didn't get it.
I was just...
Actually, Betty had another one, but I
I looked this time.
What's that? she back?
They have round one. Pillbox.
Nice to me.
Yes. Yes. Well, and I wouldn't have realized the other one was poorly made except I had bought one.
Yeah. The president gave them her. She didn't give them to me. She died and they gave it to me. But she knew more about fashion than anybody. Anybody. Excuse me, I'm very selective.
Did the person come in the elevator?
I think they're going to the podium. Almost. Here's Mark. Hey, Mark. Holly and Nancy are together. Yeah. So, and do we sit in front or you guys are sitting in front?
As soon as it starts, leave it go. Playing the
I know, but I don't.
Good afternoon. I'm Michael Popkin, and I am the current Chief of the Department of Psychiatry. According to my archival research, I'm apparently the second chief, although Bill actually documented that there was a neuropsychiatry section of the department at the General as far back as 1923. Let me begin by welcoming each and every one of you on behalf of the department to express our appreciation for your joining us at a very, very special occasion. And let me particularly welcome our guests of honor today, the Jepson family. Nancy will introduce them to you shortly. Today we officially dedicate the psychiatric day treatment program as a living tribute to Bill Jepson and to the innumerable contributions that he made to advance the cause of mental health. And also as a much overdue recognition of his remarkable leadership for 32 years. From 1959 till late in 1991, Bill Jepson shepherded this department, its staff and its patients through what I believe were probably some very tumultuous and exciting times in which the face of psychiatry and psychiatric practice was radically changed. The nature of psychiatry when Bill arrived and the end of Bill's tenure was really night and day different. And let me say that through those 32 years, Bill stewarded the department with considerable skill, with grace, and I believe always with humanity. When I met with the family in terms of trying to select a fitting or an appropriate memorial for Bill, they heartily expressed or endorsed the idea that naming an ongoing active clinical program for Bill would be preferable to simply a physical space. And recognizing that wish, which was so clearly expressed, in combination with Bill's long interest and commitment to day treatment, as well as partial hospitalization, the choice really became a bit of a natural. And what I hope, personally and on behalf of the department, is that we will create a living tribute to Bill, so that here in the institution to which he gave so much of his energy, his commitment, and his life, his spirit will continue to be embodied, as well as his values, in the William W. Jepson Day Treatment Program. This time I'd like to unveil the portrait that will be hanging in the front of the day treatment program when you get off the elevator. And I'm assured that there will be signage, right, Eileen, that will be every bit as large as the portrait. Who is the hospital's chief operating officer, to address us on behalf of the Hennepin County Medical Center. Chuck.
Thank you. When offered this assignment, it obviously brought back a flood of memories for me. I started with the institution in the early 60s as the director of pharmacy services at that time, and came here directly out of graduate school, directly out of my residency, unsure of myself and frankly scared to death. And in those days there was a handful of physicians here, Dick Raley, Bill Jepson, and others. And I was overcome by their interest in talking with me, in helping me, in building my confidence to do what I needed to do. And I thought, gee, this is really neat. Well, as I got to know them even better, I began to realize that it wasn't me, it was all of the staff that Bill worked with. That we began to realize that his vision and others' visions were that unless we could work together as a team, optimum patient care couldn't be carried out. And that applied to everybody. So from a personal note, I certainly have very, very fond memories. From an official note, Nancy and members of the Jepson family, we are honored to be able to, that you have given permission to use Bill's name in conjunction with this program. It is indeed a legacy for a very, very fine gentleman, a fine physician, and to me a fine friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Nancy? Forward, and you can identify the family for everyone. Thank you.
I would like to introduce our family to you. First, Bill's children, William Scott Jepson and his wife Susan, and Billy and Johnny, his grandchildren. So nice you could come here. today. And Hollis to Jean Jepson, his daughter, her beloved David Metzger, Douglas Weir Jepson, where are you, Douglas, and his wife Ann, and Mark Thomas Jepson. Also, Jean Jepson Page, Bill's sister, who's joined us from Washington, and we're just delighted that she was able to do that. I'd also like to introduce my brother Larry and his wife Jolene. And my niece, Pam Feiner, my other niece, Paula Manning. I'd like to thank Dr. Popkin for bringing the idea of this dedication to us and for exploring it with us in the most gracious manner and for bringing it to fruition. We are all just very grateful, and I say thank you on behalf of all of our family. I'd also like to thank John Gray for his patient attention to so many details in planning this, and John Acosta again for his wonderful portrait. Holly and I enjoyed his recollections that Bill's request was to just paint me happy. And I'd like to thank Stacy Jonkus for sharing her enthusiasm for the program with us and making us feel so very welcome. Bill and I had a special ritual which we would observe year after year, almost every evening during the spring season. Almost without saying a word to each other, we would find ourselves walking together, surveying our property, from one end to the other, looking for the signs of spring. When we moved in some 20 years ago, there was hardly a tree or flower to be seen. Now we had several gardens, we watched closely for the signs of new growth. We would try not to miss something as special as the first crocus or the first lily of the valley. We checked the lilacs for buds and the apple trees for blossoms, and marvel at the nearly grown black walnuts and white pines that Bill had planted as seedlings. Always we would stop to admire the Moorheim blue spruce the department had obtained for Bill. Dr. Daly had searched the country for it because Bill had said it was his favorite tree. The physicians planted it on a very cold October morning following Bill's successful cancer surgery. We watched the tree grow for 17 years, and always with a very special feeling of gratitude. As I was continuing our ritual this year, the air was perfumed by the lilacs. They made clouds of purple and blue and white around the yard. The tulips were in glorious color. The green leaves on the rose bushes were beginning to show, and the creeping phlox was cascading down the garden wall that Bill had built. The fragrance and the color were overwhelming. I was so suddenly struck by all the beauty that Bill had envisioned and brought forth. Beauty he had planted, nurtured, and enjoyed. He had changed the landscape forever and added so much. I share this with you because I had many feelings that were similar when I thought about the dedication of the state treatment program in Bill's name. It's a wonderful acknowledgement that you also see the beauty of Bill's work, that he has indeed changed this landscape for good and has left his imprint here, that his dedication, his steadfast principles and values, his humor and his humanity have left their mark, that his remarkable understanding of psychodynamics helped not only to heal his patients, but inspired countless residents and students of all disciplines. I know these things were matters of importance to him. Bill always felt fortunate to have his life's work also be his passion. He loved this hospital, and he loved this department, and the professional staff with whom he shared his professional life. He cared deeply about the patients for whom he was responsible, and he believed their care came before all the other myriad of considerations. And he always acknowledged that all accomplishments and achievements came because everyone worked together in that common belief. Whether a resident, mental health worker, psychologist, secretary, social worker, nurse, or psychiatrist, Bill's office door was always open to everyone. And though he often complained that the day disappeared in vignettes that began with the words, "Do you have 5 minutes? I often felt that these conversations were the glue that held things together. Bill's interest in the day treatment program was seen early on in its development. In 1969, he co-authored a book, Partial Hospitalization for the Mentally Ill. It was a joint venture of the American Psychiatric Association and the National Association for Mental Health. About 10 years earlier, the APA had sponsored a day hospital conference to explore this very new treatment modality. The proceedings of the conference reflect that there were only 8 known day hospitals in the country, and they recommended each state should take up the concept of the day hospital, quote, as an experimental substitute for new or expanded hospital buildings, unquote. The book explores what happens in the intervening years. In writing it, Bill visited the best and most diverse programs in the country. When I began at the old General Hospital, also in 1969, the day treatment program was already in operation. Bill always credited Ron Young with starting it out of necessity brought about by a long-standing nurses shortage. It was primarily housed on just one wing of Annex 2, but even then it was obvious it was a powerful program. After a few years on the inpatient unit, I was lucky enough to join the day treatment staff. By now, it had moved to the McGill building and had its own space. The program provided all manner of treatment modality, from therapy groups to psychodrama, assertiveness training to job-seeking skills, movement therapy to recreation. It encompassed the whole patient and involved the family as much as possible. Bill would join us for at least one group a week. And there would be a time patients could ask him anything about their illnesses, their medications, or their treatment. More commonly, though, patients would take the opportunity to discuss problems and issues in which they wanted his thoughts. He was wonderful with patients. Always a teacher, he would often talk about feelings and emotions, about not judging those emotions and not being afraid of them, but trying to understand what they meant and how they affected us. And Bill was never afraid to share his own feelings and experiences. He was equally comfortable whether he was gently confronting a mistaken belief system or sincerely comforting a saddened patient. Bill was, as Carl Molstad had said in his poem, a rare combination of wisdom and compassion. That group was often a highlight of the week. During that time, those of us at the day treatment program became enthused about bringing together people from all around the country. With Bill's encouragement, involvement, and his network of contacts, we held several national day treatment conferences in Minneapolis, bringing together speakers and participants from around the country. It was a wonderful exchange of skills and ideas, and we learned. We also recognized that we had one of the most innovative and progressive programs in the country. Now, as I have been acquainted with this current program, I have been so impressed. The program is securely situated once again within the structure of the hospital, expediting referral and communication, and allowing it to meet one of Bill's most basic tenets, that we should take all comers. Where we had 30 patients, now 150 patients can be served. Many of the same program concepts exist, but having been greatly expanded, and exciting new ones have been added. While most of our program was done in one large community group, now patients can choose from different tracks designed to meet their needs. There are often as many as 4 different therapies offered at any given time. The physical facility is beautifully designed to enhance the treatment modalities offered. It is comfortable and it is welcoming. Bill would be so pleased to see the evolution of the day treatment program. I'm proud. Bill would be so pleased to see the evolution of the day treatment program and proud to have his name identified with it. This permanent recognition of Bill's contributions is a wonderful tribute to him. I know Bill would have stood here, looked at you all, and said, I really appreciate what you've done this day.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Our final speaker today is Dr. Larry Tippett.
I appreciate the opportunity, but it's a little daunting to look around and see faces of people that haven't met before. And I haven't seen for a long time. And I thought, well, okay, what am I supposed to do here? This is going to be a tough act to follow, especially after Nancy sends about 3/4 of my material on Bill. There were some things he just couldn't. But yeah, I think he would have liked this. You know, he was always interested in gatherings and that sort of thing. I first met Bill 31 years ago, and I hadn't started my psychiatry rotation in the old general as an intern in 1968 yet. But there was this fellow in our internship group who was very obsessive, and he was really worried about making mistakes, and he kept, when he would write orders, he'd get 30, 60, or 40, and the nurses, of course, didn't think much about this. And so he finally taken him aside and said, "No, look, you know, you find vital signs 3 times in this series." And so somebody told him, "Look, you're overdoing it. You've got to get more concise. You've got to shorten this up." Well, he did. And he apparently, as I recall, wrote the shortest H&P that was ever done in psychiatry. And it goes like this. The patient was found outside the door in A3, that's the old annex building, beating on the door, screaming, "Let me in. I'm crazy. I always have been. I always will be." He was, is, we did. Sort of a scandalous thing, because even in those days there were some documentation requirements. The doctor really wanted Dr. Jepson to make sure that other people following in psychiatry would not be quite so concise. And in fact, so we met Bill on sort of an extemporaneous issue at that time. He had unusual administrative style. I don't think of Bill as an administrator, maybe as a leader, but certainly not as an administrator, because I don't think that he had either the temperament or the will or the fussiness to do that kind of stuff. He always did like to use this analogy about if you're going to lead, it's like the Indians, where the chief goes off in the morning and he heads down the trail. And he looks back by noon, and if the tribe is following him, well, he's still the chief. If everybody's still back at camp, he's no longer the chief. But he felt that he would use that as an analogy, and I think that was fairly apt, because there are a lot of things that Bill asked us to do that we just absolutely didn't even hesitate. But he was pretty laissez-faire too. That I always felt that when he hired somebody and had some money to do that or whatever, the message implicit in that hiring was, well, okay, look around, write your own job description, do what it is that you think that you need to do around here, and if you're going to get sued, please let me know ahead of time. It was pretty lax, but despite that, he had a staff full of self-starters and some independent people that actually worked together pretty well over the years, and he just kind of herded the flock. But yeah, this idea about 5 minutes here and just 5 minutes there. I remember I shared a wall with him, and he was really worried about having a child psychiatrist in the next wall. And referred ungloriously to ankle biters, and said, "Gee, well, that's pretty irreverent, but I can tell you that there were more shouting coming from his side of the wall in all those years than ever came from my side." And it didn't happen very often, though, because Bill just didn't really like the tempestuous stuff all that much. But he did have an open door, and people would lurk around there all day long. And just to get in and out of my office, when my patients have to step around Betty Harlan, she was always there. Just a little minute, just a minute. It won't take but a minute or whatever. And sure enough, after 30 people had done that all day long with their 5 minutes that was a minute, Bill would kind of come out and say, "Well, that's where it went," whatever. But he had sort of an appreciation that an open door policy really did help. And people told him what was going on. They shared with him, and they knew that he wanted to know, and he was always curious. The HFA thing, I think, was really tough on him. Bill understood corporate, how things operate, but he was over and over again vocal in his concern that it didn't belong in modern medicine. Remember, on more than one occasion, he said the worst day in modern American history was the day that John L. Lewis and George Meany, the United Mine Workers and the auto workers, got together and made health care a condition of employment. He said that once that happened, he said, then we're off on this path to perdition of American medicine. And I think that he's probably right. I mean, we have to look around and see, well, what's happened. His prophecy was sort of correct when we have health care tied to employment, and then we have people who aren't employed. It's a serious thing. And he always was interested in the injustice of all that. Bill, just a couple more minutes. You couldn't be around him without hearing an analogy or a limerick. He liked both. And all the limericks that I can remember are just too foul. Nancy didn't even have to censor those. I know that they're not today or whatever. And some of them he would repeat, but not very often. He had sort of an amazing repertoire. But analogies, Bill always saw things as an analogous thing, and occasionally it was kind of interesting and would stick in your head. We'd have our sort of doctor staff meetings after HFA started, and the pressure was on. Well, they've got to do some funding stuff here. We've got to get the income stream going. And one of the proposals, I don't even know where it engineered, but where's Nick? He's back over here. The idea was that since the MMC next door had this private psychiatric pavilion, and was in part funded by some federal funding, then maybe, you know, as a county hospital, they ought to have some rights of invading over there. And the idea was we're going to send Nick over to MMC to have a private practice there that's all lucrative and pulling in extra bucks to help fund the other things in the department. Well, the mechanics of how that was going to happen got to be really obnoxious. And, well, what if this and what if that, and who's going to cover his patients? And you know, our own inpatient doctors here, and if he got exiled, he wouldn't be part of it. And it was bogging down really fast. Bill got one of these disgusted looks on his face. Oh, hell, he said, it's just like having Dayton's lingerie in the middle of Donaldson's. I think it ended with that comment. That notion of fundraising just sort of died on the spot. Then another time, Dr. Kim was one of his admirers, and Bill was coming across the parking lot one evening to get checked in for some procedure the next day. Doctors Kim and Hurwitz were taking a late exit into the parking ramp, and Bill hailed them. Hey, Kim. Oh, Bill, hi, how are you? I hear you're going over to the university. Yeah, Kim got sort of apologetic look on his face and felt like sort of a traitor. And gee, Bill, you know, when you were here it was different or whatever. I don't know what Kim was thinking. And Bill hollered, isn't that like just going to North Korea? This is classic an analogy. He was always teaching and explaining. Dick Rayleigh was grousing about one trip they went goose hunting, and he had a lecture, listened to a 30-mile lecture on moraines and topography. And George Norton was grousing on one occasion about a lecture Bill had on handguns, and what he knew about was just endless and always sort of interesting, but sometimes how could he just keep doing that? At any rate, I think that it's fitting that this is for Bill. He liked ambulatory stuff. He dedicated his life to keeping people in the community and different treatment modalities and to avoid the long-term hospitalization. I mean, he was sort of here in the transition. I've yet to find anybody who can give me a number of how many people were in the Minnesota State Hospital system when he started as Chief of Psychiatry. And the deinstitutionalization process was well underway in '68 when I interned, and it was because of pharmacology. And he all the time was doing this sort of unique job of using the 1962 Mental Health Act that came out of the Kennedy administration to uniquely weld the 5 parts of a community mental health center, which is the emergency services, and we still have the crisis units, one of them were famous in the upper Midwest, and it's still open 24 hours a day. You have inpatient psychiatry, you have to have outpatient psychiatry, you have to have a day treatment program and child services. And he did that, and he embedded it right in the matrix of a public teaching hospital. It's nowhere else to be found in the country then or since. All the other units have always been freestanding or separate, but to do it right in the matrix of a teaching hospital so the trainees get the exposure to it, and I certainly cherished it as an intern. I mean, we didn't want to have any more of those brief H&Ps, but at least it was an opportunity to learn, and there were a couple of us that were pre-committed to psychiatry at the time. At any rate, I won't go on and on. When I was an undergraduate philosophy course, we had a debate one day about life after death. And after everybody got their own opinions, our learned philosophy professor said, well, there was this guy named Rilke, who was one of the modern contemporary philosophers, and he was writing in Germany, and he was a contemporary of Camus and Sartre and a few others. And he said, well, you know, there is life after death according to his theory. He said, because, you know, people pass on, they're just on the other side of a screen. As long as a living person remembers, the person will always be alive. That's how I feel about Bill. Thanks.
That concludes our formal program. There are refreshments. And again, thank you all very much for joining in today's celebration. Thank you.
Doug, back up.
Summer's golfing.
What?
I saw you at the dinner, not after the marching down. So what have you been doing?
Just cashiering.
Where?
Trying to be a manager.
Yeah.
Are you? Are you still out by, what's that group called? Lake House?
Who's Lake,
Nancy would like you to stay around.
Well, I know. 8 hours and 26 minutes. Great thing, right?
Wow, I'm glad it was as long as it was.
Hey, how are you doing?
Steve Gregerson, met you at some of the parties out on the deck, and I'm trying to recall your name.
Patty and Harold Fredette.
There you go. All right, yeah. Good to see you again. This is a happier occasion today. This is kind of nice.
I won't.
Yeah. She seems to be. Yeah.
we keep being disinvited from
Nathan.
Hey, Diane, can I add one thing to
How's that? Good. Actually, the program is planned to be sort of maudlin and sad and sappy and reminiscent and sort of thing. And on the surface, it should appear to be that way. But the real fact is, this is going to be a roast. When somebody's around for 30 years, you get to know enough about them that when it comes time to dig it back up, you can always find something. Actually, before we start that, however, we do have a presentation. I'm going to ask Mike Cook to handle that. Mike?
There's a painting to be unveiled tonight. Actually, the members of the Child Psychiatry Division wanted W.C. Field for a memorial. We recall his comments on preferring children who were parboiled, and somehow that reminded us of Bill. He was particularly fond of loud, hyperactive youngsters. And when the noise would start, he would characteristically walk down the hall and pin the little tiny instant coffee machine and give a long lecture on character development. I can tell it didn't do any good, but he walked away with a self-assured smile, seeming to think that he had done something. We'd like to thank you for your therapeutic intervention. The speaker tonight is John Acosta in the back. John, would you stand, please? John is a California, moved to Minnesota in 1976 when he was commissioned to do some murals for the city of St. Paul. He subsequently established himself as an artist, art instructor, and trained at that Calhoun, which is a local studio with a focus on realism and art. We heard of him when a member of the department had seen a painting he had done in the commission work of former Chief Justice Berger. So he did this for us for Bill.
Well, indeed, he did capture the smile, and not as many pounds. Well, we hope you'll want to come up and look at it afterwards.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Amy Heejum's going to handle a couple more presentations here before we get into the real need and the reason why we came. I'm so glad I have this microphone. It's going to be one of the first times you can ever hear
Since you won't get to take a picture with you, Bill, this is a picture of a picture that you can enjoy. Bill, this is another picture. This is a collage of pictures from the past of people that you worked with.
Project for Nancy and you, from all of the departments, knowing your love of gardening, giving you something you might enjoy looking into over the next several months. Thought maybe you'd like something to do with water in your yard, something like a fountain or a pool. So there's a book, there's a gift certificate, and there's the name of some people that would be happy to consult with you about that. People that were recommended by your next door neighbor, Jean. And then there's this. This will keep you busy for a while.
People that know Bill and know his interest in education and the importance that he's put on learning over the years are sure to appreciate hearing about this fellow who also had such strong feelings about education as Bill. And this fellow came up through the Depression. He was lecturing nephews about how important it was to become well-educated and knowledgeable and know as much as you possibly can, because it had to do with your employment, that you could get a job and that kind of stuff, or keep a job. And the nephews wanted, well, what do you mean by this, Uncle? And he said, well, they said, back when things were really tight, the only job I could find to even apply for was a job as a butler. And I went to apply for this job, and this lady was going to interview me for the job of butler. And she said, our butlers are going to wear waistcoats. We like our butlers to wear waistcoats, and so we don't want them too punchy and that sort of thing. So he pulled open his Depression with a nice flat stomach, not like this one, of course. And he said, okay. He said, got my that. He said, all right, now we want our butlers to wear leggings and hose, and so we don't want any really fat calves or any of that sort of thing. So he pulled up his pant leg and showed a real trim shank and that sort of thing. And she said, okay, now let me see your testimonials. And he said, right there and then I knew exactly that I needed more education. See, we're at that part of this program now where we want to deal with some of the testimonials. And we thought we're going to divide this group of people up in sort of a series here. And Tom Kirosaki has agreed to go first, and then we'll have some intermediate people, and then we'll have an anchor leg at the back. Let's see, Tom was here before I was, which was 18 years ago, and we were still in the old hospital, and he was already legend at that time for his studies and efficiency, and for finding out who's actually doing what. And I guess I hadn't been in Old Harrington Hall for more than 2 days when the word came out that, oh, here comes another study. And this was a time study, and I guess the results of this sort of random finding out what people are doing at various times showed conclusively that the staff was spending at least 45% of their time in the bathroom. Now that was an interesting finding, and then there was a questionnaire that came that said, okay, how many staff do you have broken down by sex? And that was going to be a tough question. At any rate, we found out statistical evaluation stuff for HFA too. Of course, we like to remember that statistics are sort of like a bikini, that what they reveal are interesting, but what they conceal are vital. Tom, would you like to just take the microphone here?
We're celebrating the achievements of Bill and some of the special moments we've been plugging strange kind of intensity and nostalgia, the sound of military boots on the wet, mist-shrouded cobblestone streets somewhere in Germany. He also terrorized hospital administration by demanding 350 beds for psychiatry. This is true. The entire bed complement of the hospital. Let's do it. Go for it. Then one day he read an ad in a journal and up and left for another job. We gave him a traveling case that would go a long, long way. With Bill, we entered the golden age of psychiatry and community mental health. The work of Dr. Dick Anderson, another predecessor of Bill's, but this one sane, finally came to fruition. The county and city governments reluctantly became the site of one of the major community mental health centers in the country. The National Institutes of Mental Health had bold, visionary leadership and abundant funding. In our facility, there was an excitement and creativity as we developed our local version of community mental health in an era of reform and new ideas. Bill had an especially close rapport with Bertram Brown, head of NIMH. Bert was a psychiatrist and concert pianist who was an extraordinarily gifted administrator and an inspiring leader. To be recognized by him, very powerful in the federal government, to be recognized by him would be a special honor. At a meeting at the University of Minnesota, Bert called out to Bill, who was sitting in the audience, "Come on up here, Bill, where you belong." You told me this. And he did belong there. Under his leadership, our organization changed from an inpatient service of about 1,200 patients per year and an outpatient service of 300 patients to one of the top 10 mental health centers in the United States. The organization was written up as a model to follow and was known both nationally and internationally. This is true. We had a full complement of services among the inpatient, outpatient, and now seeing several thousand patients here. Day treatment, social rehabilitation, child psychiatry, crisis intervention, and a management information system that was unequaled in the country. I have only 45 pages to go. Now, to say the management information system was unequal should be explained. It's not that it was unequal because it was worse than anything around, but to be better than anything else at that time was not necessarily a compliment. There was no agreement about the definition of a patient, visit, type of therapy. Some centers were multiplying the number of professionals in a room times the number of patients. This is true. In a social rehab program where 25 patients and 2 staff went to a ball game, there would be 50 patient visits per hour. Right? The good old days. Remember, Thursday Terrell called me from the States saying, "I see here you have a patient that's 5 years old and is married." Thursday is probably a clerical error. Well, as far as I'm concerned, your entire caseload is fictitious. I came down, actually physically came down and looked in the hallways, read our files, and found 300 cases we had failed to report because the patient had dropped a water bomb on the registration book. The name was not available. But even that management information system improved to the point that it was a national model. Bill chaired that MIS committee throughout its existence. I don't think Bill has ever taken enough credit for the achievements that occurred under his leadership. His brother Warner, at that time, I presume still is the case, was a brilliant composer of extemporaneous, contemporary music and a modern art painter. I think Bill's understanding of his brother extended to the staff and made him open to creative ideas which he developed and explored in our brainstorming sessions. In a sense, the administrative opportunity was a canvas on which he could create an organization, continuously experiment with new forms of management, sometimes to our consternation, and arrangements of talented people and program elements. For instance, with Bill's encouragement, Ron Young developed a nationally recognized day treatment program. Zig, of course, as you know, with Bill's encouragement and also frequent testing, developed a nationally known and accredited prevention program. Perry Roth, a social worker, was particularly sought out by Bill in community claim. Bill's recruitment and strong support resulted in a group therapy program that was governed by both psychodynamic principles and modern group therapy techniques. Bill has always had a strong interest in aftercare, and he and Nancy published in that area. The day treatment and aftercare social rehab programs rounded out the complete array of services at the center, and Bill was in constant demand of national referring perhaps to a modest glass of wine occasionally at business lunches. Being a department of psychiatry, we erroneously misunderstood this term, wet lunches, to be referring to some sort of wet dreams. These, as we all know, are perfectly normal as long as they don't interfere with orthodox intercourse. Or orthodox lunches, for that matter. In an effort to terrorize us, our offices were broken into. Files, temporary challenges, and to be in control of our voyage into the future. We can see the full benefits to be derived from healthcare management science and chaos theory. The administrative and financial variables now have come to light and make their contribution to the formula in the form of a growth variable. Growth variable is K. The vast amount of human, technical, and financial resources can now be seen to influence the number and variety of health solutions. We have advanced multi-therapy and number of therapies emerging through the system. We're close. The system is a marvel of creative enterprise, which, however, if we attend to the lessons of chaos theory, may have periods of unpredictability and apparent hopeless loss of direction. Doesn't really make much difference. This diagram illustrates the transition from simple single-method approaches to treatment to moments of bifurcation. The moment of bifurcation. In which new directions cannot be immediately predicted, but once they can be recognized, their lawful progress can be traced to the next moment of bifurcation. Here we can see the culmination of psychodynamic psychotherapy. There. Bifurcating suddenly into cognitive behavior therapy and rational psychotherapy. Here and here. These in turn bifurcate into more specialized forms of therapies, for instance, primal screen therapy and rolfing. All driven by the engines of management science and economic science. Now the caution of chaos theory lies here in these regions of darkness. It's a region where the number and variety of therapies becomes unpredictable. A dizzying array of combinations of therapies and their sub-elements confront us. Nor does there seem to be any hope of predictability or a safe intellectual and spiritual harbor for us. But examine the diagram more closely. Notice bands of predictability. I know you noticed that earlier. I'm wondering what are those. And notice that they in turn occur at predictable intervals. Right? Is there hope then for those who fear they are trapped in endless chaos? Because there are familiar patterns re-emerging. In this tiny area, it's off the screen now. This is an expanded area. It turns out it's self-replicating. And the same pattern that existed up there is occurring again. Now we see the similar familiar pattern of bifurcation and to further bifurcation, another layer of chaos. But down here, look at that. There's another layer. If we expand that into this, we have another layer. All right, now let us focus with Ilya Prigozhin, the Nobel Prize-winning thermodynamicist who offers us hope, which can be intuitively grasped from the title of his two most recent books, which he'll sign for you. Order Out of Chaos, Man's Dialogue with Nature, and From Being to Becoming, Time and Complexity in the Physical Sciences. Prigozhin develops the ideas and the relationship between chance, randomness, and disequilibrium. Instead of a universe inevitably running down, all energy becoming equally distributed, we have a universe where there are paradoxical concentrations of energy, not only of homeostasis-seeking concentrations, but also of chance-driven states of disequilibrium. Force in the long run is dissipated. Chance in the long run is concentrated. Prigozhin believes that all life forms, including ourselves, are of this origin. Let us look in our diagram for evidence of this concentrated event in the midst of turbulence and chance. One of the most common characteristics of chaos exposition, as you've seen, is the use of successive levels of magnification. So let's focus on that small point indicated earlier, and perhaps see the origin of our new guiding principle, emerging from this Anlaga, this primordium of management science. Brace yourselves. the million fingers, swamp grass and cattails, grabbing and hanging onto our muscle-burning legs, the look of incredulity and disgust by our dog when he missed those roosters they've been running crazy to find for us. I'm sure they were thinking, give us the goddamn guns. And how many roosters were there that had IQs greater than ours, taking off a half a mile ahead on the road? Best of all, Paula and Rosemary really know how to cook, especially if we had a good day and they were rewarding us. Kitchen was hot on our wind-burned faces, but we didn't mind because we were home at last and the whiskey was good. Then falling asleep full of wholesome Mormon food and sinful whiskey, sleeping the dreamless sleep of the exhausted hunter in the company of his good friends. Those were some of the best moments of my life, Bill. Thank you for sharing them with me.
Thank you for that very informative scientific presentation. Now to go to the other extreme and not omit the arts as far as our presentation tonight. Carl Merlin Malstead has offered to present some poetry. Take care of the other end of the spectrum. Thanks. After that learned presentation, I feel a little intimidated here, but I'll do my best. Before I start, I should say that I come to this moment, having worked with Bill in a group therapy program at Hennepin County Medical Center. I came rather late to the program, so I only had a couple of years to enjoy Bill's supervision. But those times left a strong impression on me. And so what I've written is really based on that experience of knowing Bill and supervision. It's also a great privilege and an opportunity to thank Bill for his patience and his learning and working with the group therapy program. This is called Listen. You talked about the gatherings in the villages of Norway, how young and old, rich and poor, gathered in circles to talk. I looked around your office. We were sitting in a circle. We were talking. Psychology interns, nurses, chaplains, mental health workers, occupational therapists. Just as in group therapy, a patient works on relating to others. By relating, you recognize the power of relationships. Knowing about interpersonal dynamics and believing in relating are not relating. To relate, a person must listen. You listen. Sometimes when I am tired and my life is littered with garbled, misunderstood messages, I wish there were some other way to relate. Your willingness to undertake the hard task of listening helped to teach me the value of listening. Some women sometimes say, men don't listen. Some men say, listening is passive. Men should give orders, command. You listen. You listen with a mind filled with knowledge and experience, and with a heart like a great earth mother. When you listen to me, my words took flight like a flock of ducks in twilight. I could hear the frantic energy in the thunder of their wings. We have lost and an irreplaceable combination of knowledge and sympathy at the hospital. A wonderful male role model, not a baseball player or a pilot, but a doctor. Despite our loss, we realize we must let you go now. Life is more than a job. Do not listen to us anymore. Listen to the voices of all the books you wanted to read, but were too busy administering to get to. Listen to the voices of your family. Listen to the smell of rain-soaked pine boughs. Listen to the rustle of the leaves in the backyard after supper. Listen to the hues of the irises as carefully as you listen to your patients. Listen to the reds and pinks of your roses as attentively as you listen to your staff. Help us again find our way out of our jobs and back to the gardens in our lives. Listen. Mentioned in polite society except when soliciting grants. An era of executive committee meetings in Café Lux and front page restaurant. An era when psychiatry had not yet discovered the brain, but also had not yet lost the mind. An era of bewildering management structure defying penetration by Boozel and Hamilton. An era of no resource management, no total quality management, no managed care, email, and product lines. Not even continuous quality improvement. Well, despite all those things, it was perhaps a gentler kind of era. The kind with creative chaos and heart. Tom Peters, the author of Search for Excellence, once said that we cannot get away without opening the door to chaos. And that answer point. It does not mean a perfect era, nor a perfect marriage, but it has been our era and our marriage. I have probably spent as much time with Bill as I have with my wife. We have both sacrificed the best years of our lives for each other, but we have lasted, and that's maybe something to remember. I had decided to outlast you when I have. Now that I have, I miss you already, and I'm struggling with the new world order just like you did. I hope it will retain some of the good of your effort. And so, with the affection deserved by the spouse, I say goodbye to you, and then we should go. One note, Floyd Anderson sent a note, who's on vacation. I'd like to read this. That I and many of my colleagues will forever be grateful students of Bill Jepson. To call him Minneapolis psychiatry is like grandiose, but less so when applied to anyone else I've known. He's a master at easing the fear of being overly assertive. We know that. And a master of necessary urban modern eclecticism. To miss seeing him on this stage and regret. Sincerely, Floyd Anderson. Okay, from time to time, Bill will talk about some of his early childhood experiences, but we didn't get as much of that as we'd like to hear. But he does tell us that he has seen from time to time in a press on the moments he would reveal one of his escapades, whatever. And I'm put to remember an experience that Bill had where, being an adventurous youth at age 3, he got into an outside pool with a young neighbor girl, and take them off. And they wanted to describe, and apparently discovered this pool, playing and play together with no clothes on. Except before that had happened, Bill had remarked how he was just absolutely amazed how much difference there was between a Lutheran and an Episcopalian. At any rate, one of the people here tonight also has had the opportunity to see Bill without his clothes on, and Dick Asinger has agreed to say a few comments. Well, thank you, Larry. As some of you know, I was actually on vacation, and I came back today when I heard this. Made sure I came back this evening, and I was quite surprised to find out that I was on the program. So I was tempted to take Tom's presentation and read it backwards, because I figured that probably no one would probably know the difference.
A very young administrator at our KDP Act, I even then began to know Bill because he was interested in computers. I was doing computers back in those days. Bill and I traded a lot of good talks about computers. Whenever Bill would get some new computer, even when I was at the hospital, he would call me up and say, "Hey, Pete, have you seen this?" And so he always was the leading edge of technology, which is, I think, one of the reasons the hospital has been interested in computer technology. I also had many talks with Bill over the years about financing of healthcare, and I think Dick Asinger was right. Bill kind of felt that the government would just give us a pile of money and go away. And they never quite did that, but he kept me thinking about that. Maybe you were the founder of capitation, Bill, I don't know, but same idea. And so he always kept us interested in, and I will say that one of our more trying times, as Zig knows too, was dealing with, before we got to do Hennepin Medical Center building, was dealing with our psychiatry inpatient problems, and many difficult times, and many nights when one of us were on call and had to struggle with what to do with the patients we couldn't find a place for. And I think that one of the real motivating factors for me last year when we went through the difficult trouble of acquiring that facility was our inpatient psychiatry problem, because I knew the problems that Zig and Bill had struggled with, and then Mike too for a while over the years as we tried to find a place for those patients. And so I think that I'm really pleased now that we're doing a much better job with that particular issue in our community, and really getting the community needs. The final thing I want to say is I do like Larry's discussion of the oligopoly of oligarchy that's been around here for the years, and I certainly grew up with that between Dick Rayl and Claude Hitchcock and Bill and Al Schultz and Milton. I don't know if he's a surviving member of that or not, but the one thing that we don't talk about a lot, but one of the reasons we have a culture in our institution of worrying a lot about the patients that don't have other places to go in this town is because of that great tradition that those gentlemen left us. And hopefully those of us are a little younger, but we're inculcated with that. And I do remember Dick Rayle's very first day I got my job as hospital administrator told me the story of this other administrator and how they had, the medical staff had decided that individual didn't have that in mind, and they managed to get rid of him. So Dick always kind of got me clear about that right from day one. But I do think that the strong feeling and commitment to our community and what really makes Minneapolis and Hennepin County a great place to live is because of institutions like Hennepin County Medical Center, and that goes back to the people that helped build it into the great institution it is today. So with that, I want to thank Bill and all of those wonderful people that have built this great institution. We do have a certificate here, Mike. Do you want to say some words here?
So, when I came on board, I had a certain amount of admiration for you, and as the months have gone by, my admiration has certainly grown. You have a better understanding of what you had to contend with. Tonight is another good example of all those things. The other thing I'd like to sneak in here is that we're a little short of manpower. I'm wondering if maybe you'd like to work medication. The third is really just a chance on behalf of all the members of the department, past and present, to express a deep debt of gratitude to you for all your efforts in terms of both psychiatry
Hopkins, Dr. Bell, and myself, and we sincerely appreciate it, Bill.
Is there anybody other than our designated anchor person who would like to get up at this moment and say volunteers, that sort of thing? I'm told about a person who died and went to heaven, was giving me a tour of heaven the very first day. St. Peter was showing him around. Where do you sleep? Don't worry, we have clouds. You can just drift to sleep, and then no problem with the accommodation. Well, how about eating? Well, they said, no, we're sort of on our lunch now. Why don't we just swing by and pick up some lunch? They walked to this heavenly cafeteria, which was just gorgeous, and they were waiting in line. And then I started with breakfast, and then started thinking, well, don't we kind of get going on this? Just take your time here. He said, everybody's going to get plenty to eat. There's no reason to rush or be in a hurry in any sort of way. So they were waiting in line, exchanging pleasantries, and this small person in a long white coat, a stethoscope wrapped around his neck, came rushing forward, elbowing people out of the way, went to the head of the line, grabbed a tray, put it on the line, and then started handing food as it went through. And the person said, St. Peter once said, wait a minute, he said, I understand that there's no hurry here, there's no rush, everything. And St. Peter was obviously embarrassed, and he didn't really want to explain that. He said, well, listen, we're embarrassed about this, but try not to pay any attention. That's just God. He thinks he's the medical director. Dick Rayleigh is one of our favorite medical directors, emeritus, and he has agreed to be the anchor person on our litany here of testimonials tonight.
The way I heard it, it was a surgeon that got up. It was really plot that you done. Well, I didn't realize I was going to be the anchor person. As I told Ada, I was out of town and I got back just in time to get here, time for the salad, which was fine. I've heard all the stories, and if anyone could listen to Tom and understand what Tom said, then it's too late for all of us because Tom hasn't changed in 30 years. I remember back in those days when old stupid, or this unnamed administrator said that the Department of Psychiatry was loose, permissive, program confusion, and he intended to clean it up. And as a result of that, he was thrown out. And we still have loose, permissive programs. Except I hope, Dr. Popkin, that you eliminated some of the permissiveness of this program confusion. Well, I'm not going to spend any great time, and I'm not going to tell any more stories, and I don't have any jokes. And one thing about retiring, or two things, I guess, I found that I'm the only one with a tie on, and I feel good about that. I didn't even have a coat on. secretary so I could share a little milk who was nearby. One day, this tall, dark guy came in and was looking for Dr. Jepson. And I introduced myself, and he said he was Dr. Brown. And what was his first name? Bert. All I know, he was from the NIMH, and he was here to visit Dr. Jepson. And briefly we were talking. I said, well, you know, Dr. Jepson's a good friend of mine. He's right down the hall. And he said, well, I want you to know that you have some of the most innovative and progressive people in community health in this country at your institution. And they're all under the leadership of Bill Jepson, and I think you should know that. And then he walked out, and I thought, a little while later, some little old lady came along saying, did you hear him? Did you hear him? And proceeded to tell me that these voices that were coming, and I thought, well, that's two in one day. I do want to thank Bill and Nancy, who they know I dearly love them both. We've had some wonderful, wonderful times together through the years. Both fishing and hunting, and I won't repeat some of the hunting stories. All I can say is don't ever drive from here to you want to go between here and Oaks, North Dakota with Bill, because he'll tell you about the geology of Minnesota. You've heard when you cross the moraines and you'll find right out there west of town someplace, and the Lake Agassiz and all these places that I've never heard of, but every we used to go once a year, and every year I get the same story. And I was completely enthralled because I couldn't remember from one year to the next. My son went with us one time, and he's still talking about it. Well, on behalf of the medical staff, preparing this bill, which consists of myself and Claude, probably Al Schultz, if I can find him, he's still around someplace. Some of those that have passed on, I'm sure for the medical staff currently, also, I'd like to express our appreciation, our love, our admiration for both you and Nancy. And I think this is a very unusual picture, portrait. The smiling Bill Jepson looks just like Bill looks every time he walked into his office. He had the same appearance. It doesn't go down quite as far as it should because his belly should be sticking out. But it is a great portrait, and I think it will well serve the department and the institution to have that around for everyone to see in the future and say, who was that guy? And someday someone will say, oh, I remember him. And that'll be Bill. Bill, you and Nancy, have a wonderful, wonderful time. As you know, we expect to see you on Wednesdays for lunch when they come over for Bill's art lessons and Nancy's throwing pottery on Wednesdays. And every once in a while they stop over and we go out to lunch something. But have a wonderful, wonderful time. It's been a wonderful life that we've enjoyed with you. And on behalf of myself and Bill, we thank you tonight. Thank you very much.
That concludes the plan part of our testimonies. If anybody else, last chance to speak. I thought I'd try to repeat some. Obviously, I want to thank all of you for coming. I see some people here that met for the first time in 1959. Or really, there are not many. There's Tom, and shortly thereafter, Bill.
sharing their career with mine. I want to thank a lot of people for sharing their career with me. Not only the people who were here, but several hundred with whom we worked over the years. You might wonder why this program grew so much. Part of the reason has to do with changes in psychiatry around 1958. The whole mental health center movement began at that time. Minnesota passed a law in 1957. But Thorazine was invented in 1957. That enabled the closing, not the closing, but a lot of patients who were treated in the state hospital came home and could be in the community. Many of them have since been taken care of in general hospitals. We had one of the few inpatient units. We had the same number of beds then as we did a year or so ago, and saw about 1,100, 1,200 patients a year for less than a week. Initially, we had to send a lot to the state hospitals, but then something happened. We started to see more and more as outpatients. And our program grew and grew and grew. We didn't count revenue in those days. We counted numbers of patients who needed to be seen. We never turned anybody away. That was our credo. That we'll do something for everybody as much as possible. So, Tony remembers trying to triage these people, and so does Steve Greenwald. More and more patients, and we needed more and more people to talk to them. We did have the new medicines. We're just starting to become very effective. But we understood that with folks who were depressed, anxious, or psychotic, they all needed to talk with somebody. Not all of them. Tom discovered that so much as he was kind of filled. But by and large, we needed more people to help by call it a psychodynamic understanding, if you will, call it humanism, if you will. Early on, we had some debates where we get more social workers, more nurses, more psychologists. And you know what? We got them all. And we're continually pressing administration that we have more patients. We got up to some 35,000, 40,000 visits. At that time, it's about half the number of the emergency room. With a mental health program and a psychiatry program and the crisis unit with it, 8,000 or 10,000 visits. The drug clinic had another, it took care of 1,400 individual people every year. And I might add that out of my staff, in all my experience. 2 people, Marty and Betty, helped by some others. Had the day treatment program, that got started because we had a nursing shortage. 3 summers running. We sent the nurses over to medicine and surgery. Obviously that's a priority. And we went to a meeting in Kansas City about day treatment programs and discovered we had one. Ron Young had started it. They simply closed the ward at night and let the patients go home and go back to the daytime. Well, there were several programs like that. Actually, Tom, thank you, has described it, and so I could put that in my little talk away. This pressure to see all these people and help them is what made the program grow. And I did used to say that our as the mental health movement grew, and we did for many reasons, gained some national notoriety. We had a lot of visitors come. In particular, I remember one, which is a very prominent person from the American Psychiatric Association, who said, I know of no place where so few people are doing so much with so little as the Hennepin County Mental Health Center. I think that's probably still true. And it'll continue to be true. Because the more we discover the answers to the treatment of such things as anxiety, picture the number of people that are with that, or depression, or schizophrenia, or drug addiction. Imagine what will happen when we have the answers to some of those questions. They'll be just coming like hordes to the psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, nurses. And we will have to continue doing the same thing we've always done. Take all comers and do what we can, and hope they don't come back. Well, I was going down this list of sub-programs we had, and I was trying to think of all the people to thank. Obviously, looking at this room, which is a small portion, that's pretty impossible. I found myself right at personnel roster. What I really wanted to say, however, is that this recognition isn't for me, it's for us. We all work together. We all came to work in the morning and said, oh my goodness, look at all the patients we got to see. That's what we did. Day in and day out. And enjoyed working with one another, all disciplines together. And so I want to thank everybody here and everybody in the past who's worked with us and has shared this professional opportunity. And I appreciate also seeing the evolution of some major changes in psychiatric care during my career. And thank you again, all of you, friends, family, artists, and doctors and associates. I really appreciate what you've done. Thank you.
That's your tripod?
I didn't give it up for you.
Yeah, is that your tripod? I'll walk it.
Hi, Daddy. Thank you. How about you?
Thanks for sending me Tommy's resort.
Yes.
brochure.
Great.
Johnny, put your pants over it. It's big. They're big.